Mena-Watch, der unabhängige Nahost-Thinktank.
Welcome to a new episode of MENA-Talk. My name is Jasmin Arémi. I'm a journalist at Mena-Watch, and my guest is today Salam Omer, the chief editor of KirkukNow. For many years, he has worked closely with the German NGO Verdi, which you already know, reporting on political developments, human rights, local initiatives across Iraq and the Kurdistan region. Through his journalism, he has documented realities of ethnic and religious minorities, governance, and civil society in one of the Middle East's most complex political landscapes, the Iraq. So, welcome, Salam. Nice to have you here today.
Thanks so much, Jasmin, and thank you so much for having me here.
How would you describe the situation in Iraq right now in 1 or 2 minutes, like shortly? An overview, because we know Iran is being bombed by the US and everything is like a little bit chaotic right now.
Yeah, so I think we should start from there as well. So Iraq is right now is in the crossfire between the United States and Iran. And then this is a very, very popular joke right now. So Iran is attacked by the United States, and then the United States and its allies are attacked by Iran. But Iraq is attacked by Iran, by the United States, and also by non-state actors from inside. So it's much more complicated in Iraq than in Iran. In Iraq, it might be the picture is very clear, or in Israel. Yeah, so I'm based in the city of Sulaymaniyah, and in the north, in the Iraqi Kurdistan region, and so that's the first thing we think about actually when we talk about what's happening right now, and then so how can we manage that? How can, for instance, just last night my city was attacked by Iran, and then it seems like Iran is attacking randomly, so they have attacked areas very close to the populated areas. They have attacked forests right now. So there was a huge forest fire like last night here in my city. So it seems it's very complicated. And that's one. And in terms of security, companies cannot work. And then the prices of oil and gas actually, very high. So it's getting very, very complicated. So beside that, right now we have a new cabinet in Baghdad. So the new prime minister have started a new campaign to eradicate corruptions, and then dozens of former and now members of parliament and Iraqi officials have been accused for misusing the public money. And of course there are also other problems between Erbil and Baghdad, and also other issues related to the region. So many things are happening right now. And once a Belgian journalist told me this is the paradise for journalists. So there's always something happening you can report on.
What are the most important developments at the moment people outside of Iraq should understand for your situation, of course?
We are in a situation might be before we are always been in a conflict and also sided with one or of the warring sides. But now Iraqi people in general are very angry. The Iraqis are very tired of what's happening right now. And then actually normal people, ordinary people do not want to be part of the conflict between the United States and Iran. For so long, we have been in conflict. So people want to breathe and also return to normal life. This is the most important thing. Iraqis actually are very pissed off with this. And then they're very, very much affected by what's going on. One other issue is it seems like Iran wants to show that, Iraq is always the back door, but it's not true. It's a very distorted picture by Iran. Iraq is actually very pissed off.
What is happening in the Kurdish regions and areas? Is there something going on at the moment?
A lot is happening in the Kurdish region. The Kurdish region is supposed to be much more safer, much more developed, much more normal, but it's not like that. Now, most of the Iranian attacks are actually targeted to the Kurdish region right now, because the Kurds the majority are considered as friends of the West. So there are around 30 consulates of the Western and then Gulf countries in Erbil. And on daily basis, Erbil, the Kurdish capital, is attacked. And so if you look now at the bigger picture, maybe it's the Kurdish region is the second targeted area by Iran. It's very, very bad. So this is one of the things that's happening. Politically, it's also a deadlock. There's a political deadlock in the Kurdish region because the two major Kurdish parties do not want to form the government. Actually, it has been like around 2 years, there's a political deadlock and then lack of services. So the Kurdish government in the north are unable to pay salaries, they're unable to engage in construction projects, and also so we have hundreds of kids actually cannot go to school properly.
Where do you see the biggest differences at the moment between Baghdad, the south, and the Kurdish regions? Is there, for the conflict, some differences?
In terms of security, you can say there's a very huge gap right now between Baghdad, if you can compare it to Erbil. So both are safe, you can say, but the Kurdish region is much more developed. It's a huge business center, so it's open. It's more open culture for people to come and go out. So in terms of businesses, in terms of being more open culturally, politically, so the Kurdish region is much more open, and most of the business events, political events, and also I'm also a consultant media trainer. Most of the trainings and consultancy projects actually are happening in the Kurdish region based in Erbil. So there's a difference actually in terms of development and also construction and also the political engagement there actually. But if you compare Baghdad to 5 years ago, 10 years ago, there's a huge difference.
Would you say that there is a sense that Iraq is stable at the moment, or is it still a country in crisis?
If we exclude what's happening between the United States and Iran, actually, we can say that now we have just left the stage of violence. We can say we are just out of this, and then so we are in the stage of to rebuild, and also because still there are many crises going on. There are political crisis, economic crisis, and also there's also a lack of trust between communities, especially what happened after 2014 between communities in the north and northwest of the country. So we are in a crisis actually, but in terms of political freedoms, in terms of press freedom, we are much more open than any other neighboring country. You cannot compare Iraq to Turkey or Jordan or Kuwait or Iran. We have a multi-political system. Of course, there are corruption, there are crises, but we can express ourselves. There are thousands of platforms, media platforms across communities. So they report, they complain, and also, I do believe that there's the environment is much more open, and then there are much more potential if we even compare it to Turkey. Of course, we have a lot of problems, but on the other side, things can go on and can move at the right direction even.
What is the relationship today between the state of Iraq and the ordinary people?
I think if you go back to the last election, and we feel that, more and more people distrust the political process. And this is very, very obvious in the elections, in the last two elections, in the federal elections, the national elections, and the elections in the Kurdistan region. So more and more people boycott political protest, and more people actually distrust the political process because they do not believe in the political system we have, in the politicians we have. And this is actually a very, very bad news when more and more people do not want to actively participate in politics, in that it starts from the political discussions, that what's happening on daily basis, because they think nothing can change this. When you have elites, and then once a politician said the coalition of the corrupt will run the country, and then they could control everything. So they could have controlled politics, they have controlled economy, they have controlled the media, for instance. So they use millions and millions of Iraq's public money to actually campaign, and also to for their media platforms. So I think there's a huge mistrust right now between what actually moves on this right now is because now in such cases voters go back to their ethnic and religious lines, and then usually vote for them. And then in many cases, the big drive is they belong to a certain community, and then community should be represented in the political system, unless there's a huge mistrust between politicians and the ordinary people.
When it comes to Iraq, the most Western media pages are showing people in camps, people living in camps. Are there still people in camps? What are the biggest problems? Is there any progress at the moment?
We have IDPs, we have also refugees at the same time. So that's mostly started at the advance of the ISIS to Iraq in 2014. So for years, we have around 1,800,000 IDPs based in the Kurdish region, mostly in Duhok and Erbil. But now it has been a lot of efforts, and the majority of these IDPs actually went home. So even we have right now climate-induced IDPs at the same time. So, but most of those actually stayed around 500 to 600,000 IDPs. 80% of them actually live outside the camps, and 20% of them live inside the camps, in mostly still based in Duhok and Erbil. So, and then that's mostly, we talk about the north, actually, which is the result of the ISIS advanced control of those areas. And the majority of these, a few hundred thousands actually are from Yazidi communities. And then what's actually happening right now, developing, is we have internally displaced people because of the climate change that's mostly centered in the center and south of Baghdad. So according to the figures by the International Organization of Migration, we have around 186,000 IDPs because of the climate, and that's mostly actually from the center and south of Baghdad. So this is happening actually right now. And then in terms of camps, we have different figures, but there are around 25 camps still. You can see IDPs are living there, but the majority of these IDPs actually live outside camps.
What is happening with people who cannot return home in case of war and war crimes, etc.?
So we talk about two different settings. Actually, we talk about the IDPs because of violence of ISIS. That's mostly from Mosul, and then the majority of them actually are from Yazidi communities. So there are a lot of things happening actually prevent them from going home. So their areas, mostly Sinjar, is not safe yet. There are political conflict among different groups active there, so they don't have a shared understanding. So they are operating outside their state control. So this is the issue of safety, the issue of political conflict, the issue of lack of services, and then we have also problems even within these communities of actually how is it better to return or not to return. So there are a lot of issues happening right now in those areas, which is located in northwest of Iraq. Because of these many reasons, actually, IDPs cannot decide or are unable to return. So I do think, we haven't handled this transitional period very well as Iraqis. So we didn't understand very well, but we have to work on that. But to be honest, lots also has been happening during that time in terms of compensation, in terms of encouraging IDPs to go home. For the people out in the center and the south, that's because of the climate change. It's totally different, I think. So many people leave their households, their villages, and also in the marshlands as well. So, and they want to actually, because they are forced to migrate to the city to find jobs. And then a lot of violence is also happening at this level, at this period, because even, underage girls are forced to marry and also to work in harsh conditions, to leave school, to be honest.
The environmental issues are a bigger point and topic I want to talk with you today. Thomas von der Ostensacken was writing also an article about it while he was being in Iraq and visiting Wadi again. How serious is the environmental crisis in Iraq today?
To be honest, personally, I do believe that it is deadly serious. And according to the facts we have right now from the UNDP development organizations and other organizations, because so Iraq is is in the ranking is the fifth country is affected by the climate change, and this is real happening in terms of water shortages, desertation, and also a lot of other climate related problems. So this is deadly serious. Every day another problem pops up, and then even this becomes like a sideline issue, and then people do not think about it. But I think that was even right now, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, even it was presented as a joke, and then even by politicians didn't get it seriously. But now every person in the country feels that almost every day. So this is a real issue, like we should face as communities in Iraq.
So we are talking about water shortage, dust storms, pollution, desertification, and I think also cities where you are not able to live anymore because it's too hot.
Yeah, these are the major issues Iraq is facing in terms of desertification, in terms of water shortages and dust storms. So, and then in Iraq is getting hotter and hotter day by day, and this is really serious. It happens in the south, and then it's getting hot and hot when you gradually comes to the north. So there are areas like maybe 3 hours away from my city, which is supposed to be cooler than other parts of Iraq, but still they are very, very hot. Like they record around 47, 50 mid-August, in areas closer to Iran, to Indiana, and then in those areas closer to the center of Iraq. This has gradually caused a lot of internal problems when farmers, they cannot find water, and then gradually they come north, so they clash with locals in the north, and then we will face more and more problems. And the problem is that, for instance, we cover Iraq's disputed territories. These areas actually disputed and is not settled according to the Iraqi constitution. These areas should go through a process. There's already demographic changes, so legacies of the past. And now with these new movements from the south to those areas, because of the climate change, now we have doubled the problems. Now it becomes so complicated that you cannot imagine it, because it's not only climate change, it's also the legacy of years of dictatorship and demographic changes, especially targeted Kurds and Turkmens in those areas.
Can you explain why there is such a water issue in Iraq today?
Fortunately, this year we have a lot of rainfall. So, that's the problem. We forget things very quickly now. And now if you feel everyone is cool, okay with that, they say, oh, we have water, we have a lot of water, but that happens. So that's, everyone knows that's temporary. So, and then that doesn't go on very well. So, and the major issues is because the major water sources of Iraq is outside Iraq. It's outside the control of Iraq. So they're coming in from Iran and Turkey and through Syria as well. And then so Iran and Turkey do not respect international standards, international regulations of how to share water with Iraq. This is really a huge issue in almost every day, Iran and Turkey. So even Iran looks at Iraq as the back door, but in terms of water, that's coming from the north, and from the south, it's the desertification and things like that is going on. So this is the huge problem for Iraq, and it's located in a very hot area. And then the major issue is poor policies by the state. There are no strategy by the politicians in the country to deal with that. This is a huge issue we face. And I think by 2030, Iraq will be unable to provide water for at least it's estimates between 15% and to 30%. That's very, very low. So we have to look for drinking water in a better way. So I think this is a huge issue in Iraq.
Are there any meaningful political or local initiatives that working on that, so that there is probably a chance to keep on providing water and keeping the temperature down a little bit?
Yeah, there are ministries. So both in Baghdad there's a ministry, in Erbil there's a board, in special institutions dealing with that. So they have a lot of things they want to do actually through this. But what really meaningful steps have been taken by international organizations and also local initiatives supported by international organizations. So because this should start with awareness raising. Like 10 years ago, no one thought about this, and it was not an issue. But now, because thanks to the international support and international organizations who support local initiatives right now, so I think this is because there's an awareness, and there are a lot of youth also, like experts now. They understand the phenomena. They can work on that. So now because even I personally trained around like dozens of Iraqi journalists. Actually, now they can report on environmental issues. Even they have got small initiatives in the center and south and north of Iraq actually working on that.
You also talked about that some regions are a little bit more vulnerable than others. Can you explain a little bit where the regions are, which are a little bit more cooler actually, and the regions which are a little bit more vulnerable?
We have always been proud, like Iraq has got like the real 4 seasons, like, winter, spring, summer, and autumn. So that because, it's somehow different. But to explain that, you should go to the south. So everything starts from the south: desertification, dust storms, and lack of water. The vanishing of the marshlands. Actually, these are from the south and southwest. Actually, so it's mostly all governorates, all provinces south of Iraq, which borders Iran in the south, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, and Jordan. Actually, they're the most affected areas. So, and going into the Iraqi lands. So these are the areas actually mostly affected by that, especially west of Iraq, southwest of Iraq, mostly affected by desertification and also dust falls, and also even in most of the migration actually happens, at those areas, and also areas closer to Iran in the south. So these areas actually are the most affected areas by desertification. And then when you gradually move to the north, it becomes cooler, and then it becomes much, much cooler. So with the Turkish and Iranian border in the north. And these areas actually are the Kurdish areas and bordering Turkey and Iran. So when there is a higher percentage of rain, snow, and then you can feel all the 4 seasons around the year now. Shortages of water, it's the same.
What is your opinion to what would need to happen right now to improve the situation and overall?
We need to continue the dialogue. That should become a daily dialogue and conversations, talk between normal citizens, and they should move on to politicians who should make it like a priority, because it's a priority. The problem, Iraqis, especially the political elite, they don't have the crisis management mentality. They don't see the crisis until we are in the crisis, and then when you are in the crisis, actually you can. It's the time of taking actions. It's not a time thinking and planning and designing and having a strategy. So that's a major issue. So we should have politicians who can take this seriously and take it as a priority, because we cannot do that. Like local initiatives, international organizations can be supportive, can be there, can transfer knowledge and things like that. But that's what Iraqis can do that. So I do believe that we lack this. We don't have the mentality to work on that, and politicians should rethink and revise this.
Salam Omer, thank you very much for sharing your insights and joining us today. And thank you to our viewers for watching this episode of MENA-Talk. If you enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to like, subscribe our YouTube channel, and share it with others who might find it interesting. See you next time.
Mena-Watch, der unabhängige Nahost-Thinktank. Besuchen Sie auch unsere Website. Dort finden Sie täglich neue aktuelle Berichte und ausführliche wissenschaftlich fundierte Hintergrundanalysen zur Geschichte und Gegenwart der MENA-Region.